Okay, so my dissertation. Okay, so I called it Horse Sense and Investigation into Human Horse Relationship. So horses had a special status in the Iron Age. We know they were used for chariot driving, riding, warfare, but we have evidence for the special status that above all other animals, they were held in very high regard. And we have this evidence from faunal remains, such as here, Pocklington horse chariot burial recently. We have evidence from metalwork, such as this beautiful bit, which you can see at the British Museum. Likewise, the Stanwick horse mask. And archaeologists are interested in horses and human relations. And we have a picture here of a reconstruction of an Iron Age chariot with two very cute ponies. But I always knew I was going to do my dissertation on horses because I'm pretty horse mad, and I saw a gap in our understanding of human horse relationships. And it started from this quote by Tacitus, which I'm not going to read out to you, but it's where Tacitus, and it's after the fact, and it's take it with a pinch of salt. And he's talking about Iron Age people from Gaul and how they tied an unbroken horse to a tree and then brought him out and watched him and listened to him, and therefore they could predict the future. And it was with this quote I started to think more about horses and of our understanding, kind of Iron Age horse whispery kind of thing. And I thought, that's the gap. We don't know how they broke or trained these horses, or what was it that made them so special? What did they admire? What qualities did they want above all else? And I've just got up there a panel from the Gunderstruck Cauldron, and that's from a Roman perspective, where they talk about the well-known brilliant horsemanship of Iron Age people. So I wanted to see what characteristics and bring in horse psychology, horse behaviour, veterinary science, and I wanted to know how to do this. And I thought the best way would be to look at horse iconography firstly, and to see if we could see these qualities reflected, and perhaps then see it reflected in perhaps horse gear, and therefore how they trained and broke these horses. So for the sake of the dissertation, I had to choose a collection. I had to have a discrete collection. So I chose the northeastern coins ascribed to the tribe of the Coiltavi, and here's some coins here, and they come in silver and gold, quite simple. And there's been studies that suggest that overall Iron Age coins, the silver were for kind of local distribution, and the gold were for more distant distribution. So I had to decide on a methodology. So I decided to characterize the characteristics of the horse. By doing this, I first looked at disarticulation. And you can see from these coins that some of these horses look like horses, their legs are attached to the bodies, and some of these coins, they're a total mess. So I assigned them from realistic to a total mess. And then I looked at the degree of movement. It's quite subjective, but I decided that some horses on these depictions were representative of more movement. For example, up here, we have a horse that is probably leaping. Over here is probably only walking about. So I did a level from 1 to 5 of movement. Then I looked at the angle of the tail. Now, the angle of the tail, the height of the tail is really important in horse behavior. And, you know, for example, a high tail could show excitement, readiness to mate, high movement, whereas a low tail may show a depressed horse, fear, no movement. So I ascribed numbers to this as well. The neck is really important in modern horsemanship. We like to see an arched neck on a horse. It's accepting its bit. We love that. And so I assigned it high, medium and low, and whether it was arched or not. And you can see various variations in these horses. Also, I assigned if there was an accentuated body part, was it the hind, the chest or the neck? And I was hoping to see perhaps maybe the chest would mean maybe it was more for chariot driving, or the hind showing strength, all these things that we ascribe to horses anyway. Ears and eyes. Ears were either present, not present, forward or back. Again, ears can tell us a lot about the horse. You know, forward, it's responsive, it's alert. Perhaps back, it might be submissive, or it's in fear. Eyes, they could be large or small, present or not present. And also, only looking at these coins did I realise that perhaps there was a harness or something else that was present. Luckily, so there's over 4,000 of these northeastern coins on the PAS, but luckily I didn't have to go through them all, as they've all been ascribed to type. So I went through just the ancient coins of Britain and did it from the type. And the results showed an absolute disparity in the metal type. So we have the gold and the silver. And I'm not sure if this might be too small, but the gold showed a high level of disarticulation, so that kind of unreal depiction of a horse, high movements and leaping. There was arch neck. Arch neck is shown on both. Sorry, that's coming up. And the chest is accentuated, possibly to do with chariot riding. The silver was more kind of realistic, low movement. The chest and hind were accentuated. Again, it had this arch neck. Harness was often present. The tail was usually present, often raised. Eyes not always present, but also, and possibly most compellingly, a short body type appears in the later series. So this result I was absolutely overwhelmed with and just thought it's brilliant. So it's what I've interpreted as the appearance of foals. So it's in series 2 and 3, which have been ascribed to the dates AD 25 to 47, which is a lot of things were going on then. So it's quite exciting. Now I ascribe this foal body shape. So it's a short body shape with long legs and a very short high tail, a kind of frolicking foal. And I've put up a picture here from the Copebrook stud of a few hours old foal next to its dam, which shows the short body shape, the long legs and the short tail. And it's interesting to note that horses only retain this shape for a very short period of time, about 6 months. By the time they're a year old, the proportions are much more like an adult horse. So that was extremely interesting results. I then, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, I wanted to go down to the British Museum and have a look at their bits and do a whole study on it. But obviously the pandemic hit, so I was left with pictures. So with the coins, I looked at the training and the breaking. And obviously we've talked about the neck, how it was arched. And this is something we really want in modern day riding. We want the horse to have an arched neck, mouthing the bit. And this is how we encourage this in the modern day, is this rubber snaffle here is what we would use for a young horse to get acquainted with the bit and start mouthing at it, and hopefully to get this shape, which is a bit accentuated in this dressage horse. Now, this middle lineage bit, the really pretty one from the first slide, has a very, very short bar, which is this bit which lies in the horse's mouth, and also this detail here. And it's so small and so tiny that it could only possibly be used in a very, very small mouth. This bit isn't used. I would suggest that it possibly hasn't been used on a foal or anything like that, but it possibly is representative. And this mouthing bit in the middle could suggest breaking and training. I've put up this frieze of the 4 horses' head, which is quite a famous thing here, and you can see that these horses all have the nose tucked in, very much like this dressage horse, but they're not wearing any tack, and I think that's quite interesting, that often it's omitted even when the horses are quite obviously being ridden. We don't need bits to ride horses, to train them, sorry, and this foal here is learning his job next to probably his mum, and that's been going on for a very long time. So with the silver and the gold, with this disparity, I concluded that gold was more fluid, lots of movement and freedom, and the silver coins were kind of more domesticated. So we have the horses and we have this kind of wild versus domesticated. The gold is wild, the silver is domesticated. And it's often we think of horses as either one or the other, but in actual fact, horses are both at the very same time. And we can see this in other Iron Age studies, which discuss the idea that against kind of the Roman way of working the horse all year round. It's been suggested that Iron Age horses were kept wild as part of a herd and maybe rounded up for work. It's also suggested that horses weren't used as much as we thought. They were definitely more of a status. So horses can be both. We want to harness what is wild and make it domesticated, and both sides of the horses are revered. So a horse has and is both of these qualities. It can roam as part of the herd and also be harnessed under saddle. And the picture I have here is from Siberia, and it's the wild horseman. I can never say it, so I won't say it. And what they do is their horses are wild as part of the herd, and they round them up for selling and re-breaking or breaking in, and the horses remember their jobs from the previous year. So my research, I think the most important thing was the foals. I don't know what they represent. They roughly correspond to the time of the Roman invasion, and I feel like that could be explored more. If you want to read more about Iron Age and horses, then I've put some reading lists up there.